What's going on, guys? It is Sam here. In this video I'm going to be talking about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6 problems that I've had with, but I found quite a lot of bugs with it, and so has my friend Dave. So I just thought I'd pop on here, do a quick little live stream, talk about this camera, what I found with it and what I found wrong with it, and just give you guys a heads up so you know what you're getting into when you buy the first revision of the camera with the first version of the firmware. So basically what I want to be talking about is the wedding that I shot yesterday. So me and my friend Dave shot a wedding here in California yesterday, and we shot on two of these Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K cameras, and we also shot on my Red Gemini. And these cameras more than kept up with the Red. We were both super impressed with what you get out of this, and for the form factor and the size and the price as well. It's a tenth of what the Red is. It kept up amazingly, but what was wrong with it was a couple of firmware bugs, which will hopefully get ironed out by Blackmagic after people bring it to their attention. So the first thing that we found was in the morning, I was shooting on the Red in slow motion, and Dave was shooting on this also in slow motion. So you've got that high frame rate button right here, and what it does is it overcranks slow motion and slows it down in camera to 24 frames. So he was shooting 60, but with a base of 24. Basically, when you hit that button and when you hit playback, it should play back in slow motion, which it did. But the issue that we saw with this first version of the firmware was that it looked like it was playing back in 16 frames a second. It was really jittery, really jarring, and we didn't know if that's how the footage was actually gonna come out. Like, obviously I had done some tests of what the slow motion was like and knew how nice the slow motion was, but watching it back on this screen was terrifying. Being like, oh, hopefully this whole wedding doesn't look like this, because it's basically unusable. So that was the first issue that we found. The second issue that we found, which was another bug to this camera, was half the time it didn't really even pick up that media was attached. So I had a SSD attached on top with this Velcro, and that's what I was recording to all day. And basically sometimes you'd turn the camera on and it wouldn't pick up that the SSD was even plugged in. So obviously you can't record, you can't see it down the bottom. You have to turn the camera on and off a couple of times, plug the cord to the SSD in and out a couple of times, and eventually it'll pick back up. But the first time it happened, it showed that the hard drive was completely empty, and that's definitely not ideal when you've just shot a whole wedding day and you don't think that there's any footage on there. So you're like, oh, did this format accidentally? Like, what is the deal? And we waited another minute, and then eventually all of the footage came up, and like the mini heart attack that I had about losing a wedding was gone, and the footage is great, and I've got it on my computer. It's totally fine, nothing went wrong, but it was just a bit shocking the first time it happened. And it wasn't just with the SSD on the top here. Dave, on his camera, was shooting to Cfast, and the exact same thing happened to him there. So we didn't test out on SD cards, but I'm assuming it's exactly the same thing. So something to be aware about: if it doesn't pick up your media, turn it on and off a couple of times, plug the media in and out a couple of times, and eventually it'll come back up. And if you think that there's nothing on there, wait a little bit longer and it will eventually come up. Now, another bug is with this function 2 button, it turns a LUT on and off, so you don't have to watch log footage the whole time. So we were recording with the LUT on in RAW, obviously, so it doesn't matter, you can turn it on and off a couple of times. But towards the end of the night, there was a couple of clips where you couldn't turn it on and off for, which was a bit weird. Didn't really affect anything, but it was just something to note. And that was pretty well all the bugs that we found. I think there was just those three main ones. Obviously, the most important one was the card being formatted, or looked like it was formatted. That was the biggest shocking thing. Other than that, these cameras performed really well, kept up with the Red. The only other thing which won't be fixed in a firmware was the battery life. It was pretty terrible. How long does the battery last? 4K? Exactly what you, Robin here is asking. The battery life was probably the same as the 4K. We get about 20 minutes per LPE6 battery. So I would definitely recommend a solution, unless you're gonna be rocking 10 batteries at a wedding per camera. We literally just had a charging station for the Canon batteries, and we just kept putting some on, and Dave had a bunch of spare ones that we used. Yeah, I mean, great camera, super happy with it. It ticks all of my boxes. I actually really love the Super 35 crop as well. Feels more like a toy. Yeah, I mean, in the hands it does feel a lot plasticky and more of a toy than the Red does, but the image and what you actually get from it is 95% of the way there to Red. I actually really love it. So yeah, I just wanted to jump on here and tell everyone the issues that I had. Hopefully the bugs get sorted out, but that was pretty well it. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to comment them. I will be pretty responsive in the comments. I'm going to be putting out a lot more videos on this. So if you have any questions or want to see any tests, let me know. I'll get to it. But other than that, that's the problems I found with it. So I'll see you guys in the next one. And if you don't subscribe, consider doing that. I'll definitely be doing more. Thank you so much for your comment. I just saw that then. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.